House is out. Democrats once again continue their meeting in Leesburg, Virginia. Tonight, closed doors, as Dan pointed out yesterday, I believe. They're hearing from Governors Whitmer, Shapiro, and Beshear, three people often discussed as potential presidential candidates. That's closed press at 7:30. Earlier today, the Senate is in as Democrats grapple with the strategy to try to figure out how not to be blamed for shutting down the government by the press and the public and the Republicans, at the same time not being accused by their base of caving to Donald Trump. They're meeting at around noon, around 1 over lunch, once again, third or so meeting to talk about this. And at 2 o'clock, some Republican senators, don't know who, are meeting with the president at the White House to strategize about the legislative agenda. So first up, Dan uh, Dan continues to believe that he and Sean will be correct, that eventually the Democrats will vote for cloture, if not final passage, and the House bill will pass the Senate tomorrow, maybe Saturday, whatever. Dan, do you still think that Democrats will get some fig leaf from a very seemingly conciliatory John Thune and find their way to finding enough votes to get this to the floor?
Yes, I do. They're going to fold, and I get why they are trying to show the base that they're doing something. But to me, this is almost idiotic because they're just getting pummeled by the right and by some people in the middle when everyone knows that they're going to end up folding and they're not going to stop this. So I think what they'll do is Thune's going to let them have a vote on the floor for what's called a clean CR, which would mean that literally the budget as it is today would be the same budget, tomorrow, so to speak. There would be no changes. So
for 30 days. For 30 days.
For 30 days, it's clean, so to speak. That will fail. They won't even get a majority of the vote. Then they will put the continuing resolution that came from the House on the floor to file what's called cloture, meaning that we're going to end debate and put this up for a vote. There will be at least 8 Democrats that will agree to that. I was surprised that Hickenlooper and Warner both came out yesterday and said they would not vote for that. I did find that a little bit curious, at least Mark Warner. Hickenlooper's up in 2026.
So Dan, just for the sake of argument, name 8. Fetterman plus what, 7?
So I think Warnock, Ossoff, the 2 Arizona senators, Kane, Baldwin, Slotkin, and maybe Shaheen now because she's not running. Like it'll be somebody
that gets retiring. You that's 9, so you're good.
Yeah, I think they'll do. I just if you shut down the government, I asked this on X like a week ago. I don't know what your get is. Like I know, Mark, in theory, it's that Trump rescinds some of DOGE or agrees that what is in this current appropriations bill, they will carry forward and spend the money appropriately. He's never going to do that. And the House is not going to agree to it. So I just...
Yeah. Dan, Sean, Dan said this was almost idiotic. Most Republicans I know think it's simply idiotic.
Well, just let's go back to the timing. The House is out. There's no, they left for a reason to jam the Senate. So the government closes Friday night, just so we're clear, at midnight. The House passed the bill. And then I know everybody was like, oh my God, the House is out. They did that for a reason, which was that you jam those guys and you say, hey, we're not here. If you don't pass our bill, the government shuts down. That's a fact. Now you can call it what you will tactically, but the bottom line is unless the Senate passes the identical bill, the government shuts down. So this is why they did what they did. And I think that, yes, they might throw a fig leaf or whatever we want to call it to make them feel better. But at the end of the day, I don't think that enough Democrats, because the best case scenario, you could call the House back in, but they're not going to do it. They're going to make the Senate walk the plank on this.
The one thing that I think is not discussed enough, and I know you both know this, is the base. The senators would all vote for this in a heartbeat, the Democratic senators. It's the fact that the base, given voice, not just by the squad, but by the so-called groups, are just saying, you must do something. And the smart Democratic senators are saying, well, game it out for us. Tell us what it is. It would happen. That would be good for our side if we vote, if we don't get this to the floor. And they don't have an answer, but you can't, I think, blithely disregard their frustration because letting this pass is giving sanction, in their view, to DOGE.
Right. But the problem, Mark, is to have this this conversation should have been happening a month ago.
Correct.
But instead, the base, the steam built in the kettle. It built, and now it's kind of starting to squeal out that the base is like, you have to do something. But I mean, I talked to one person last night who was like, we're not going to die on the Hill for the bureaucracy right now. Like, if there was one department that you said, okay, like national security or the veterans department, like we want this cut. The problem is the base wants them to dig in on the entire bureaucracy.
Correct.
And that is a very dangerous thing politically to do.
One of the things the Democratic senators continue to discuss is, before they wave the white flag, and I got to say, Thune is being awfully accommodating to them stylistically, is where can we tell the base we're going to win? Where's our legislative win? So, Sean, what's the answer to that? If you look ahead to the rest of the year, where can Democrats win on the Hill?
I think part of this is, if you're Schumer, you just want to punt, meaning give them something to look forward to. Maybe it's the debt ceiling and say, hey, we're going to get something out of this. But I agree with Dan. I mean, do you really want to be defending the status quo right now and saying, hey, we're going to keep Doge, like we're going to fight for this? You're fighting for, I mean, I get you could be nuanced on it, but that's not how it's going to be portrayed. I also think, just to your point about Thune being accommodating, he's got to watch his six, because if I were John Thune, I'd be careful from a MAGA world standpoint that you don't look too accommodating.
I agree.
I don't know
I was surprised.
Yeah. I would say this. I think that they got to give him something, throw out debt ceiling or something where we can say this is what we fight for. But Schumer, to Dan's point, has to be careful, because if he doesn't pick somewhere that is realistic, they're going to, at some point, this is the problem with the House guys when they, bucked Hakeem Jeffries leading up to the joint address, when they didn't feel like there was a plan. And they said, if you don't have one, then we're doing mine.
Right. Dan, where can Schumer and Jeffries tell the base they're going to get a win?
I mean, look, the only place that I think this conversation could be had potentially is if they do a debt ceiling vote, like a clean debt ceiling vote, where they're going to need Democrats. Like, they are going to have to come to them.
But what's the win?
I mean, that's it. And I think the party has not prioritized amongst the shock and awe. They have not picked, 2 or 3 topics, whether it's within Doge or on immigration or on tax. Like, the party has not had that narrowing of the funnel of the mind to say, these are what we really want to try. We want to get something. The base is just saying, stop everything. And that's just not realistic. So I think, Mark, we need to narrow our focus and then define what that is for the base.